Okay, so if you've ever owned a houseplant, you know the feeling. That little jolt of panic when you spot it, the very first yellow leaf. You immediately feel like you failed, right? Well, today we are going to decode what your plant is actually trying to tell you. And you might be surprised to learn that a yellow leaf isn't always bad news.
Right? You see that one yellow leaf, and your first thought is, oh no, what did I do wrong? Trust me, that reaction is totally normal. It happens to every single plant owner, whether you're a beginner or you've been doing this for years. But what if we looked at it a different way?
Exactly. A yellow leaf isn't a report card on your plant parenting skills. Think of it as a message. Your plant is basically sending up a little flare letting you know that something in its world isn't quite right. So our job today is to put on our detective hats and figure out exactly what that signal means. To solve this mystery, we first need to understand what's actually happening inside that leaf. So let's look at our first major clue, a process called chlorosis. So what on earth is chlorosis? It sounds complicated, but it's not. Basically, the plant is just pulling the plug on that leaf. It stops making the green stuff, that's the chlorophyll, which then lets the natural yellow pigments that were always hiding underneath show through. It does this to save energy when it's stressed. Our mission is to find that source of stress.
I want you to think of this chart as your detective's clue board. This is your starting point. So go look at your plant, physically touch the soil, and find the row here that best matches what you're seeing. Are the leaves kind of soft and wilting, and is the soil soggy? Or are they crispy and the soil is bone dry? This little chart is going to point us directly to our prime suspect.
Okay, now that we have our clue board, let's focus on the number one suspect. Because let's be honest, 9 times out of 10, the culprit we're looking for has something to do with water. Watering issues are by far the most common reason for yellow leaves.
Now, here's where the details really matter. Both over and underwatering can give you yellow leaves, but the evidence they leave behind is completely different. With overwatering, the leaves are going to be soft and limp. That's because the roots are basically drowning. With underwatering, they're going to be dry and crispy because the poor thing is just desperate for a drink. How the leaf and the soil feel is your most important clue.
Let's dig a little deeper into overwatering, because it is the number one plant killer out there. If you're seeing these signs, soil that feels wet all the time, yellowing on the lower leaves first, and they feel soft, maybe the pot feels really heavy, or you get that musty, swampy smell, that is a classic case of suffocating roots. They just can't breathe, so they stop working, and the plant has to sacrifice leaves to survive. The fix is simple, but it's crucial. First, stop watering immediately. Just let that soil dry out. And I cannot stress this enough. Your pot must have drainage holes. It is completely non-negotiable. Without them, water just sits at the bottom and root rot is pretty much guaranteed. But okay, what if your plant is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum and it's totally parched? When the soil is so dry, it's pulling away from the sides of the pot? Just pouring water on top isn't going to work. It'll just run right through. What you need is a good, therapeutic, deep soak.
And this is how you do it. It's called bottom watering, and it's super easy. You just set the pot in a sink or a tray with a few inches of water, and you let the soil act like a sponge, just wicking that moisture up from the bottom. This makes sure the entire root ball gets nice and hydrated. After about an hour or so, just make sure you let all the extra water drain away completely.
Okay, so what if you've investigated your watering habits and you're thinking, nope, that's not it. I'm pretty sure I'm doing that part right. Well, if watering isn't the prime suspect, it's time to consider the accomplices, other factors that can cause yellow leaves. Suspect number 1 is just plain old hunger. If the yellowing is more of a pale, kind of washed out color, and it's happening all over the plant, not just on the bottom leaves, it's probably a nutrient deficiency. It's like your plant has eaten all the food in its lunchbox and there's nothing left. The fix is really straightforward. Just feed it with a balanced fertilizer, especially during the spring and summer when it's actively growing. All right, next up, uninvited guests. And for this one, you might have to get up close and personal. Pest damage often looks different. It's more like tiny yellow spots or stippling, where these little critters are literally sucking the life out of the leaves. Flip those leaves over, look underneath, look for tiny webs or little dots or any sticky stuff. If you find something, quarantine that plant immediately and start treating it. Light can also be a double-edged sword. If there's not enough light, the plant can't make its food, so it'll start dropping leaves, usually the ones furthest from the window, to save energy. But Too much direct sun can literally scorch the leaves, making them look bleached or faded. The key here is just knowing what your specific plant likes and moving it to the right spot. And hey, don't forget to check its immediate surroundings. Is your plant sitting right next to a drafty window? Or is it getting blasted by a heat vent all day? Sudden temperature swings can really shock a plant, causing it to drop leaves in protest. A stable environment is a happy environment. So after all of this detective work, all this investigation, there is one last possibility we have to consider. What if that yellow leaf isn't a problem, but actually part of a perfectly natural process? And this is a really key distinction. If it's just one or two of the oldest leaves way down at the bottom of the plant that are turning yellow, while the rest of the plant looks lush and is even putting out new growth, that is perfectly normal. The plant is just getting rid of old parts to make way for new ones. It's actually a sign of health, not a problem. Now, the big question people always ask is, should you cut them off? And the answer is yes. Once a leaf goes fully yellow, it's not coming back to life, it's done its job. Snipping it off just allows the plant to redirect all that energy towards healthy, new growth instead. So, we've learned how to solve the case of the yellow leaf. But you know what's even better than solving the crime? It's preventing it from happening in the first place. So let's talk about how to set your plant up for success from the get-go. Here are the golden rules. First, please ditch the watering schedule. Don't just water every Saturday. Water when the plant actually needs it, which you'll know by feeling the soil. Second, drainage, drainage, drainage. Third, put the right plant in the right spot for light. And finally, give it some food in the growing season and check it for pests once in a while. It's really that simple. Because at the end of the day, caring for your plants isn't really about following a rigid set of rules. It's about observation. It's about paying attention to the signals they send you. The key isn't a schedule, it's a conversation. So go take a look. What is your plant trying to tell you today?